Abby. Where are you starting us out today?
Okay, first one. If Nebraska's first 4 games were reversed, would the Huskers be 4-0?
Great question, because I do think there's something to it. If Nebraska was able to kind of have the Maryland versus Charlotte game.
Oh, God, yes.
Charlotte was beating Maryland, and Maryland was able to kind of figure it out and win. Nebraska has not had that luxury. They've had that luxury for years. And
I know.
You could make an argument that that's played a factor in the records we've seen of Nebraska because of the nature of this place. When Nebraska starts the season with a loss or 2, all hell breaks loose. And it's hard, I think, for the players to kind of get confidence and whatnot, where if you could just start out with a couple of games in a row, I do think it would make a difference to get some momentum.
A couple of easier games.
But like last year, you could argue Northwestern should have been a win.
A couple easier games in a row.
Yeah, Minnesota on the road. But last year, Nebraska should have beat Ireland or beat Northwestern.
Yeah, but that was still a Power 5 team. I see what you're saying. I 100% agree. I don't know that enough's being made of it. And I wouldn't say this necessarily if it wasn't a first-year staff. It's a first-year staff that wasn't afforded the opportunity to ease in. Mm-hmm. I do think there's something to be said at times in a program, wherever a program is, for easing into it. Georgia eases into it. Alabama eased into it.
Michigan.
It would have, yeah, they're really easing into it. But I'm not saying you run from tough games, but there are, like a season like this with a first-year coaching staff that's changed things significantly. It would have been really nice to play Louisiana Tech out of the gate. Let Sims maybe get some confidence. Maybe he turns it over a couple times in the first half or 3 times, but Nebraska's still able to win. And then the conversation is not as hot. Maybe he learns from it, takes it into the second game, is a little bit better. Now you're 2-0 and it's not a freak show, right? Yeah. Now we're dealing with what? It's just hot here. It's all of a sudden hot.
I mean, if Sims has one bad mistake against Northern Illinois,
it'll get hot.
I mean, it's going to get groany in that stadium.
So that would be my counter to that, though, is, I mean, if you got a quarterback turn it over 7 times in 2 games, you're not going to have a hard time beating Northern Illinois. You're going to have a hard time beating Louisiana Tech. I mean, just because where Nebraska is right now, like when your quarterback, your most important player, is making that many critical mistakes, it's tough to beat anyone. So,
but a much better chance.
Your chances are greater, sure, but there's no guarantees, especially with the mistakes they're making.
No, but man, ask it to go on the road.
I get what you're saying. I mean, the fact that you can make those mistakes and come out with a win, the whole vibe is different.
God, you were there at Colorado. That was now. Listen, I've been covering. I mean, come on, we've all been covering this for many years. I haven't gone into many environments like that.
Can you imagine if that was a night game? I mean, I've never seen.
I don't even know if that would be healthy.
10 a.m. A, use the F word so much in my life.
Right.
And B, be that jacked up at 10 a.m.
Hey, hold on now. Humor me on this. I don't think it would have been healthy to have that game at night based on what I saw. Yeah. Based on what I saw and heard from
and why
there would have been casualties.
Why are they charging?
Casualties.
Okay, why are they charging the field to beat Nebraska? I mean, why are they charging the field? I don't know.
Students were out of control, but I mean,
students just wanted a party.
Right. It was a party.
And they were trying to get Rule off to not be a part of that. And then he's smart. If Rule didn't shake Deion's hand, that would have been another
huge disrespect story.
Didn't even shake Deion's hand.
Right.
The disrespect.
Well, that was smart by Rule to demand that he gets that moment, because if he wouldn't have,
it would have been a story.
Colorado would have, they would have used that.
Didn't even shake coach's hand.
Right. They would have. Yeah.
Shedeur Sanders like waving his Rolex in the face of Billy Kemp, but then like Matt Rule inviting him to come in and join their prayer, and then him acting like they disrespected the Buffalo.
Okay, now let's just be very clear on how we feel about this. I thought that whole thing was very contrived by Colorado.
Completely contrived.
Yeah. I mean,
that's a team that was just looking for motivation. And so they took one snippet from an off-season interview Matt Rule did when he was asked directly about his strategy for building Nebraska compared to Deion's, and he said he's doing things differently. That was talking smack about my pops, apparently. And then they go out and have a team prayer, which they did against Minnesota. And if you go back and look at what Matt Rule, all his teams do that. Yeah. And so this is nothing new. And they take that as the whole team like stomping on the Buffalo.
Oh, come on.
No, they were praying.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't like they were out there doing bad things to the Buffalo.
Yes, they were standing there. It was like a slow kind of trot out to midfield.
Sanders says that Buffalo means a lot to me.
Yeah, he's been there, what, like 4 months? Get out of here.
All right, we've kind of ate up the whole mailbag on question number 1.
Sorry.
What's next?
Okay, our next one. Why do you think Rule is sticking with Sims? Is it because he's confident that he'll overcome the turnovers, or is there a big drop off in the next QB?
Well, that's a good question. I think there's two things at play there, Abby. Number one, Rule and Satterfield, that's the hand-picked guy. It was a calculated decision. It wasn't whimsical. It wasn't, oh God, we got to go get a quarterback. Let's get that kid from Georgia Tech. This is the guy they studied and elected to bring in. And Abby, if you go away from him, that's an admission that you fouled it up. Okay, that's number one. Mm-hmm. Number two is, the second part is how steep is the drop-off? Mm-hmm. I would ask you guys this, and this is what I would ask fans. And there's a lot of smart fans and a lot of smart people that have told me you got to move on. I've heard that, but I still say, really,
you better be sure.
Are you ready to hand the team to Heinrich Haarberg? Because that's what you're doing. You're handing the team to him. I hear these comparisons in the turnover discussion to the running back. You're not handing the team to Gabe Irvin. No. You're not handing the team to Ramir Johnson, but you would be handing the team to Heinrich Haarberg. So no, I just don't think it's at that point.
They invested too much into Sims.
Investment.
I mean, Amigos, Gary Michaels clothing, Acres equipment. I mean, there's a lot of investment in this guy to just close the book in 2 weeks.
But also, coaches made an investment. The coaches.
The NIL is a whole separate thing, right. But there's a huge investment. Sorry, Robin.
Yeah, and I would also, we have a pretty recent example of what happens when you do that. Remember when Adrian Martinez got benched? They brought in Luke McCaffrey. Didn't go well.
No.
And then you had this weird kind of revolving door at quarterback where there was no true leader at that position. It was kind of a game-to-game. They didn't really know what they were doing.
You got to look down
week to week.
You got to look down. You got to be able to think 4 or 5 steps ahead. What if Heinrich Haarberg doesn't succeed? Mm-hmm. Now, are you going to go back to Sims? And now what's that?
And you got a whole nother mess on your plate.
Right. Now, it's possible, of course, that Heinrich Haarberg would succeed, but that's a judgment call, and it's based on what they're seeing in practice. And it doesn't feel like, based on what Rule has said, that he's ready for that Heinrich's ready for that.
Yeah, that Adrian McCaffrey one, I still don't even think Frost and Verduzco back then wanted to do that. But they almost felt like the call of the mob that they had to try something different.
Which would be a very similar situation that we're at right now.
Well, if Saturday goes poorly for Sims early, there'll be a call of the mob.
No doubt.
Yeah, you'll hear it in the
state. Then if they went to Haarberg, he'll get this huge, it would be like a huge, it would be hard for Sims to hear,
oh, God.
The other guy.
Let's not talk about it.
All right, final question.
Another subject, please.
Okay, our last one. What is your best story from Boulder this past weekend?
Oh, Sean,
God.
Sean, looking over at Sean at the sports bar, the sports bar with no cable, looking for the Wisconsin-Washington State game by himself with the remote control in his hand. That's one thing. And then the baby sitting there too, which is funny.
We ate at a place.
You can say, Sean.
It was a former Outback Steakhouse.
Is that what it was?
Turned into a combination barbecue food, Indian food restaurant. Co-management.
Your typical combo.
I mean, so you could get fried chicken with Indian food sides.
Yeah,
you
could get mulligatawny soup as your starter before your rack of ribs.
And at one point we looked over and what was sitting next?
So we're sitting down. First of all, there's one waitress crying her eyes out.
Yeah, balling.
A lot of pressure. We walk in and Sam or somebody from the World Herald goes, "Hey guys, just buckle up," as we get down. And then there's another waitress who's had way too much to drink.
She's ripping shots behind the bar.
Should not be working. Then there's a bartender that's just sweating, running around this place with a chicken like his head cut off. He was trying to serve 40 people by himself, I bet. And then you had a baby. So we're sitting at our table, the table next to us. There's a baby carrier. And Robin goes, "Guys, there's a baby in there." And I'm like, "No." And all of a sudden the baby starts crying. The other waitress working there had her baby in the restaurant and started serving and walking around with the baby. I politely asked if they could turn the Wisconsin game on one of the TVs, and I was shut down.
The guy said, "I got a lot going on right now, man."
And I said, "Hey, sorry, we're at a sports bar. I figured I'd ask." And
so Sean just goes and grabs the remote off the bar and starts messing with the TV.
But they didn't even have cable. It was like an antenna.
Yeah, it was an antenna.
And it was like this hanging pad off the TV.
Oddly, though, The chicken was
Yeah, the food was
incredible.
great.
Yeah, the food was excellent.
Drinks were great.
I had fried chicken.
We
It was the
both
best-
got fried chicken at
and it
this
was
place.
very good. It was very good fried chicken.
Well, then the night
It was
bef-
like grandma's.
and then the
Grandma's.
night before we're in the
Grandma's.
same
Grandmother's.
place, and like
Grandmother's,
all
yeah.
these famous Colorado football players were there. Like Bill McCartney's son
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
in there.
The running back too, who just got signed by the or somebody. I'm blanking on
Bill
his name.
McCartney's son's an agent.
So yeah, it was an interesting experience. That was our. Well, and I was sitting at
Our walk. We had to walk quite a bit.
Well, I would tell you this. You guys didn't know this because I didn't really tell you, but I went down to get a burrito before the game, and I just sat in front of that big buffalo they have sitting out there. I sat on the base of the buffalo and I ate a burrito, and I just kind of watched the scene. And man, there was a kid in a red shirt that was basically getting assaulted by Colorado students, like trying to take off his shirt at one point. Cops intervened. I didn't intervene because I was sitting there eating my burrito, but
These kids are lucky.
but man, it was rough. And then the kid, his name is Josh, came up to me and said, "Did you see all that?" I said, "Yeah." I mean, there were kind of waves of Colorado students coming up to him and just yelling at him right in his face.
It's just rich, punky kids too. I mean,
Yeah.
these people that are screaming, they're not all Colorado fans. It's just
I don't know what the hell's going on.
What's
half the
crazy
time.
is like the girls were the
Pretty bad.
biggest trash talkers.
There was some serious trash talking.
I know.
It was I mean, I can't listen. Again, we go to all these games. I've been to every road game for 30 years. And I have not seen an environment like that. I have not. And then I heard at the airport guys talking to me about how like they felt unsafe going to the restroom.
Yeah, they're getting screamed at while they're peeing in the restroom.
Yeah.
instead of Catholics versus convicts, the Miami Notre Dame, somebody said they should call this farmers versus frat boys.
I don't know what
I don't
the
know.
dynamic. I can't really explain it.
There was at least one brawl in the stands that went viral.
Oh, and a
on-
Nebraska
on
guy
TikTok.
gave some visor wearing
Easy showing.
polo shirt Colorado kid a hell of an elbow.
Mhm.
Did he?
elbow to the temple, knocked him out.
Oh,
Kind
hello.
of ugly.
See, I think a night game, and I'm not joking around.
I'm saying that would be everywhere.
Yeah,
in
I think a
game.
night game. When you say casualty, there'd be casualties.
Seriously.
Casualties.
All right. Well, think if Nebraska would have won.
Oh God. Oh God.